All right. Okay. We know you guys have busy schedules. We're 2 minutes in. We'll go ahead and get things going here. Like I said earlier, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. We're going to be starting this call off with wins. And so if you have a win, I would love for you to unmute and tell us. Um, if you're in a position where you can't unmute, we'd love for you to type it in the chat. Just, let's start off this Thursday morning on a high note and be willing to be brave to share. So as you guys are thinking, I have a client. I don't know if he's on this call. He's usually on the call. Dale Eads with Arnold's Plumbing. He's in Oklahoma City, which is like the biggest city in Oklahoma. Shocking, I know. And we've been working with Dale for quite a few years now, and trying to get him to rank in the Oklahoma City market has been pretty tough, but he's been so diligent. He has over 700 Google reviews. And this week when we looked, and I want to make that clear, he had 10 when we started working together. So like the man's putting in the work, okay, to get those Google reviews. Consistency is key there. But when we were searching for plumber OKC this week, he was coming up in the top 3. And so I want to celebrate that, his consistency, getting into the 3-pack. And then I'd love anybody else to share what wins, what's happening, what's going good. And as we're sharing wins, I want everybody thinking about questions that they're going to want answered during the Q&A.
As you're thinking of some wins, I got a smaller one. He's not here this morning, but Joel Bailey with New Davis Construction had probably his biggest month ever in sales, but it was at least for sure the biggest month in sales this year. And one of those sales he got, we talked about offering financing, and everybody's had that kind of thought, is financing even worth it? Is it worth it to pay that annual fee? But he did, and closed a job on financing that specifically asked for financing. They were looking for a contractor that would offer financing, so he wouldn't have gotten even the opportunity if he didn't have it. And so he closed that job, and I think that's just a small little win, which is good.
Yes. Cody, I see your comment here. Win, glad to see you Oklahoma peeps are safe from the storm. I appreciate that. We were a good distance away, but it's been a weird week. A lot of lightning storms, a lot of thunder, a lot of rain. I haven't heard the sirens go off in my area, though. I don't know, Bryce, if you did, or Travis. I haven't. But I do have a client in Omaha who was very close, like 2 miles down the road from a ton of damage. And we were talking about it yesterday, and he goes, Nicole, I kind of feel bad. Like, this might be my biggest year ever because I'm a remodeler and we just had a bunch of tornado damage. I was like, hey, Riley, don't feel bad. You're here to help. You didn't cause the tornado. Like, you're just there to help those who got impacted. And so gotta take advantage of the opportunity and serve the community. Any other wins? Yes, absolutely, Jordan. I know we're entering the busy season. Anybody leads going up? We're staying really busy.
I got a win.
Tell us, Fernando.
Like this week's been super crazy. We've done probably like, I want to say last week and this week, I think we did like 80 grand, which we were kind of super slow for the longest time. So it's been good. We definitely picked up. The Google's been kicking in. I got a ton of Google calls, and those are the best ones.
Ah.
And then as of yesterday, we sold a $17,000 repipe. So that's a win.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
That's
That
awesome.
is a win, Fernando. And
Yeah.
I love that win because all the time I'm hearing, Nicole, people just aren't buying. They're not buying anymore. They're not buying. They can't afford it. Interest rates are too high. You just sold an $80,000 repipe.
And the thing is too, she financed it. So the interest, it's not the interest. She financed it too. So
Yep. Yep. I love to hear it, Fernando. Thank you so much for sharing. Any other
Shout out to
wins?
Travis. He's the best coach.
Okay, I take that personally, Fernando, but we'll allow it.
Fernando, I'll send your payment over when we're out of the group call.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, right here.
Any other wins?
Well, I'll share one more. I have a remodeler that I work with, Gartman Renovations, and so far this year, um, he has almost by the end of this month he should have matched his revenue from 2023. So he's on pace to have a huge year, and a lot of it has come through Google Local Services working really well for him. He's actually had a lot of success on Thumbtack, and he manages that really well, just getting back to people really quickly and then closing the deal with them. So he's excited for a big year upcoming.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're second day in May, and he's already surpassed 2023 revenue. That is phenomenal. Ugh, it's huge. I saw a couple more people jumping into the call. Last call for any wins. What's going well? Going once? Going twice? Okay. All right, so we're going to get into the Q&A session, guys. There is really no like rhyme or reason to this. There are no stupid questions. There's no silly questions. I guarantee you whatever question you have, there's probably somebody else shy to ask it. You know, I guarantee you that somebody else is thinking the same thing you are. And so what is currently pressing in your business? What's the biggest thing that's on your mind or holding you back or challenging you right now? I would love for you to ask so that you can get feedback, not just from us, but somebody who's in your shoes or have been in your shoes. So the floor is yours.
I have a question.
Yes, Anthony.
So, we went to this event, this Limitless Arena on Saturday. It was like a business type of meeting, and they said something to us, like one of their coaches, that the reason why we're not growing is because, like, as the owner, we're doing most of the work in the field. Um, so he said that we need to hire someone basically in our place so we could focus more on the business and getting leads and all that. Um, how does somebody take like that step or know when to do that step?
It's a great question, Anthony. And I feel like probably most people on this call have been there. Can I kind of get a show of hands? You can even click the hand raise button if you're not showing your face. Who's felt that? Who's been there of like, okay, I'm getting to the point. Do I hire? What do I do? I see Sir Plumbing. I see J&B Trades, Brandon Carley. Arnold's Plumbing raising his hand all over the board,
Everybody.
Anthony. So you're not alone. Everybody's felt that. Um, and typically when you're at that stage where you're like, man, I'm a little bit stuck. Like we're busy and we've grown quite a bit, but like I can't grow any further because it's all on me. Like I can't do any more than what I'm already doing. I'm the bottleneck. Typically, and this is something that I would ask your coach to kind of guide you because there's no right or wrong answer here. When somebody gets to that stage, you're either going to need to hire somebody to replace you in the field and do the work that you're doing out there, which is going to allow you to kind of step into more of like an office manager sales role where you're answering the phone, doing all of the tracking, updating documents, doing all the sales calls, sales appointments, that type of thing. Um, or the other option is you kind of stay in the field and doing sales, and then you have somebody who is answering the phone, booking appointments, doing collections, follow-up calls, and you are hiring an office person. That's usually what we see is kind of you have two paths to go down. You can either hire somebody to replace you in the field or hire somebody to help you in the office. And there's really no right or wrong there. It's kind of whatever you want. Personally, I will say that finding an office person is usually easier and cheaper. So that tends to be kind of the way most people go. But again, there's no right or wrong. I would talk to your coach and kind of come up with what's going to be best for you. And then before hiring, It's going to feel a little bit scary, Anthony. If I asked for another show of hands, I think everybody will say that they were very scared at this stage in their business. It's a lot of letting go. It's a scary time. But what's going to really build your confidence is if you have the systems in place for whichever position you hire for them to come in and do really well. We have a daily checklist. What are they doing? We have a job description. We have a write-up policy. We have a way of tracking what they're doing. If you have those systems in place, you're going to feel a lot more confident about letting that stuff go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes sense because I was talking to, I'm sure you guys have heard of Andy Elliott, but I was talking to one of his guys over there. He said that, I was like, so what do you mean? Like, are you saying that I should just like step out of the role and like essentially give somebody my salary kind of thing? And he says like, that's the problem is a lot of people get stuck there because they're afraid to do that. But what we don't realize is when we give our role to someone else, even our pay, that they'll make you more money kind of thing. But I didn't know. I'm kind of scared.
Absolutely. Oh, it's a scary
Yeah.
time. Again, everybody else who raised their hands also were very scared at this time. And any position that you hire for, whether it is an office manager or a technician or a project manager, it should be an asset instead of an expense. There might be a couple weeks where you're training them up and they're not bringing in a ton yet, but pretty quickly within the first couple months, they should be making you more. Even the office person should be making you more than they're costing you. If they are not, they're either not being managed well or they're just not the right fit. And typically, I would say they're not being managed well is the one that I see the most common.
Yeah, another way we talk about that same idea is buying back your time. Every business owner goes through these phases where you start the business and you're wearing every hat that exists in a business. So if that's 30 hats, if that's 50 hats, who knows? But each time you're able to take one off, that's, a role that you're delegating or giving. So it's buying back your time. Same idea there.
Yeah. You'll finally be able to get to be a business owner in some aspects, Anthony, instead of the number one employee, which is exciting.
Yeah, you backfill the roles you once held, for sure.
Sweet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
I would add one thing to that too.
Yes, Brandon.
When you do hire someone, temper your expectations because they're not you. So maybe set your expectation at 80% of your productivity as like what they should be striving to attain. And they might start out at 60 and get to 80 when everything is really operating well. But if you have 5 people at 80%, that's a lot more than what you can accomplish on your own.
Amen. Hallelujah. And I'll say that we even see that when clients are starting to learn how to estimate, they'll always put in they'll put in the amount of time it would take them to do the job. But I promise you, none of the guys are going to be able to do the job as quickly as you would. So you got to give yourself wiggle room. Nobody's going to care the way that you care or perform the way you perform. And so that's a really great point, Brandon. Any other questions? I would love a show of hands or just unmute and fire away.
I have a question, wondering if anyone else has kind of run into this and what to do with the situation.
Liz.
Also, hi, sorry, I'm very jet lagged. Got
Hey.
the trip last night, so I'm trying to pull it together. But anyways, I am dealing with a client that is basically breaching the contract. So, I have all my trades in there, and then she will approve costs, and then she is basically bid shopping. So everything in the beginning of the project was going really well. And then she started adding, change order after change order after change order, realized, okay, she's spending a lot more than what she anticipated because of her design changes. And now she's basically using the contract as looking at what each line item for the fee is, and then bid shopping and having other guys come in and do the work while it's clearly a liability for my company to have other guys that are not insured. And I've explained this situation to her. So I'm kind of at a loss of what to do at the moment.
Yeah. Is she hiring these guys on her own, Liz? Like if she finds somebody cheaper, is she bringing them in, or is she just trying to get you to
Yeah.
lower your price to what their
No,
price is?
she's doing that without knowledge. So, I'll be running, for example, having my glass guy come in to measure for the shower and letting her know, oh, okay, well, this was the date that they're going to be there. And she goes, and it's in the contract originally that we would be scope of work, and she already agreed to it and signed it. So, yeah.
Well, I would love to hear from a client kind of on this. If anybody's dealt with a similar situation and what you learned from it or how you handled it. Um, I know Brandon's on this call, Clayton's on this call, ALO construction,
I
and we
would
got a
I
few
would say
remodelers.
if you can, stop and let
Stop.
that project. Yep, just stop and let it sit for a week. Because if you're gonna lose money, you're gonna lose more and more money the longer you keep going without addressing the issue with the client.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let progress stop on that job, that might be the only thing that gets their attention. It's the
Yep.
hardest thing to do with subcontractors, but you're putting all the subcontractors' liability at risk too, as well as your own. And the longer this goes on, the closer it gets to her just not paying you what you already agreed to, and you're further and further into the project without enough money.
That's good advice. Thank you.
So I've done it both ways, and it really sucks to stop because everything in us wants to get the project done. But if you don't stop, the problem's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of at this crossroads at the moment, because they are living in the house, which absolutely does not help. But we are at the phase where all the kitchen cabinetry is being fabricated. So there really isn't a lot of work right now on this project. It's just getting paid for the rest of what I've completed thus far. And then, we're another like 3-4 weeks out until anything is being installed in their house again. So
Yeah, I'd hold delivery on anything that you can, just to be like, until we address these issues that are current, like we can't move forward.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
it's totally okay to have the conversation, Liz, of the sit down, let's address the elephant in the room and say, hey, we've loved working with you. We really would love to complete this job. We're running into some issues. Here's what we cannot happen if we continue on your job. Like if this is how you're wanting to proceed, then we can come up with an agreement where you pay us for the work that we performed, and will release you to find another contractor or to hire these subs on your own. But if we are going to continue, we're going to have to follow the contract that was signed, and right now that's not being followed. And just give them the options. Hey, there's option A and option B, and we're not going to proceed until we come up with until we agree on how we're going to be moving forward. And I see Brandon, who just spoke, and I see Brandon Carley, who owns a remodeling company in Colorado Springs, both feeling the exact same way. Jordan, I see your hand up. I have a feeling you feel similarly as well. But it's not going to fix itself. This person's not just going to suddenly go back to following your contract. We've got to have a consequence, and we've got to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all for the advice. I really appreciate it.
Yes, Liz, thanks for being here. Where were you in?
I was in Portugal for the week for my mom's 72nd birthday. So we went to go celebrate there.
How amazing. I'm looking forward to our next meeting so I can hear about it. Sounds awesome.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Great questions, guys. What other questions are we having this morning? Concerns, grievances, thoughts? Oh, gosh.
I was going to say, I would like to add, some customers just aren't worth it. For example, I've had a contractor that we work with quite a bit, we still work with, who had a client. He was bidding a pretty large project. It was several $100,000. And the client had something small at his existing house he wanted. And contractor just gave me his information and said, hey, can you run a service call for him? I'm like, sure. So we called him, actually told him how much it would be before we even went out. He approved it. We went out, did it, sent him the bill when we're done. And he calls me and he goes, that the classic line, you charged me this much and all they did was, and I said, I'm not understanding. I was like, I'm not sure where we went wrong. I said, because, I told you exactly how much it would be before we went out. You said that was fine. You knew what they were doing. You approved it. We went out and did it. And, now we have an issue. And he goes, I just don't think it should cost that much. And I said, okay, that's fine. What do you think it should cost? And he told me, and I said, all right, I'm just going to adjust your bill and you can pay that. I immediately called my contractor and said, I'm not doing the project. I don't care what he says. I said, I'm not going to do this project for this customer. He goes, whoa, he was freaking out. He's like, well, why? And I said, well, I explained to him what happened. And I said, some people just aren't worth it. And I said, this guy's willing to quibble over something that he agreed to already over a couple $100. And I said, he's going to do it. What do you think he's going to do when it's a couple $100,000? And his project manager called that customer and had a conversation with him, which induced him to call me back and apologize. And I said, yeah, I appreciate that. That's fine. But we didn't end up doing the project anyway. They ended up firing that customer because he continued to bully people around and they ended up sharing with me later. So some people just aren't worth it. And
I think that's a great point, Jordan, where it's like at some point, and hopefully we find it out pretty early in the vetting process, in that first phone call or first sales appointment. Like if a customer is already seeming difficult at that stage in the project, I promise you it's not going to get better when you start. I was waiting for Dale Eads to comment because him and I just dealt with a difficult customer last week that was trying to pull the same thing. They approved the work, signed the estimate, said yes. And then when we sent them the invoice, they go, this is high. I'm not going to pay it until you give me an itemized invoice for every single little thing that you did and all the materials you bought. And we said, nope, here's your invoice. Here's what you agreed to. It's been approved. Payments due upon receipt. We don't want to get collections involved. Sorry. And that's something that you, Jordan, and Liz both did really well in both of those situations, is you had the documentation. This is the scope of work. The customer's agreeing to it. They're agreeing to the price. They're agreeing to our terms and conditions. And it's so important, guys, if you guys don't have a working agreement, if you guys aren't getting stuff signed before you start work, please work with your coach to get that implemented as quickly as possible, because that's the most powerful thing you have in your tool belt when you're dealing with these types of situations. Ryan, I saw you raise your hand here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I was just going to say that I mean, every experience you go through, I have after 10 years of being in business, a laundry list of ways that I've gotten burnt that have been implemented into the contract. And now at the working agreement, they sort of interweave with each other, that it explained up front. I've had a few clients that they start to gain a little bit of traction, just like you were dealing with, Liz. As soon as they feel that they've got a power shift in the dynamic and you are no longer in control of their project, they will continue to put pressure, you know what I mean, and choke you off. So again, I agree with everybody's best case scenario right now is you got to take it, nip it in the bud, take back the control of that project, because it's gonna escalate. Eventually, they're gonna be like, why do I even need you? I've been running this job myself the whole time, and that's going to lead into a sticky situation of them either not seeing the value in what you've done thus far, or basically just realizing or thinking that they can control this thing. Problem is the work that you've done so far has now been compromised by unlicensed contractors and should basically void your warranty and liability for the job, even the stuff that you've done, because you don't know what other people have done. One of the things that she's looking at your contract and going, well, I can get this done cheaper. She's shopping it out. That's case in point where I no longer show and line item stuff for my client. If they do, I simply say, look, if you're comfortable with the price of the project, then we move forward. If you're not, maybe we're not the right contractor. I said in previous cases before, people say, well, my cousin, he paints, so I'm going to save $2,000 and he's going to paint. That ruins my schedule. I can't wait for people to come by on a Friday afternoon and paint your house with pizza and beer, because you just drink beer and eat pizza and you don't paint. And then Monday comes around and now, well, can you guys do it? And, maybe, he was going to do it for $500. Can you give me somebody cash? So all those little things it just erodes the platform that you've built with the client and the trust factor up front. And they begin to think that they're a general contractor. And I would just lean on that side of caution. Obviously, that's going to be something you put in your next contract or your working agreement, that, you bring in your subs, you use your subs only because they've been vetted, they're licensed, bonded, they're insured. And this is the reason that you're doing it and moving forward at these prices. If they've overspent, one of the things I could tell you that I've implemented that gets people from overspending, signing the change order and having the change order paid upon completion of work right then and there. You do it.
Amen.
Give me the money, and when that bank account's running low, guess what? You're not going to be so quick to try sign the change order. I got burned on about 25 grand in change orders one time. They paid about half because that's all they could afford. And I'm like, well,
yeah. Never again. And that's
front.
something too, guys. If you do not have a change order policy, if you are not using it, if you're scared to use it, because I know a lot of people, that's their concern is, oh my goodness, I know we're already at the top of their budget. There are several different types of change orders. There's three, actually. There's the one where the customer comes to you and wants to do something different. After we've already agreed upon it, they're wanting to change something. That's a change order, and it's going to change the price of the job. It's going to change the timeline. And we heavily encourage having a fee for those types of change orders. And that fee does not go towards the scope of the job. It is just a fee to pay for the time that it's now going to spend you to change things because of that change order.
And it's non-refundable if they choose not to go forward.
Non-refundable. And so usually that's like a $250 change order fee. If you explain that before you start the job and set those expectations, what it should encourage is for them to be very set before you start the job, so it minimizes the change orders, and we can talk into details and nuances with that. The second type of change order is something unforeseen. You guys are contractors. You don't have x-ray vision to look into every single house or underneath. There's always going to be something. There's always a surprise that you can't anticipate when you estimate the job. That's a change order. We're not going to punish the customer by charging them a fee, but we are going to go to them, explain the situation, explain the new timeline and price point, and we're going to get a signature before moving forward. Like that shouldn't be coming out of your profit. They didn't know about it. You didn't know about it. There's no way to know about it before we estimated the job. Okay. The third type of change order is we effed up. It's on us. That's the only time that it should hurt you, is if you effed up. If you had a guy who shattered something, did something wrong, had to go back out, that's the only time that it's on you. And so we have a change order policy with all those three types of change orders written out and how it's handled. If you do not have that, please talk to your coach so we can get that implemented with you.
Yep.
And I would argue, Nicole, that there's maybe a fourth and a fifth.
Okay,
fourth, I would say, is $0, like whatever this changes doesn't affect our contract or price. And then /5th, here's a favor that we're doing. Back in my commercial days, I learned to document favors so that if you get in a, argument at the end about the schedule shifting or something, you could say, well, here's everything we did on the house that at the time did not affect anything, but it was chalked up as a favor. So it helps with arguing future change orders.
Gotcha. I'm all about going above and beyond for people. But what we run into a lot with our clients, Kindle, is people doing work for free. And so I'm a little bit nervous about that one just because we have clients that literally like undercharge and do a ton of work for free. And we want to avoid that. They're like not making money because of doing those things. So it's okay to go above and beyond. It's okay to do a favor, you know, if you're in a sticky situation, but we want to make sure that we're charging for the work that we're doing.
And that's fair. I would say to that too, that may even fit in that $0. The second one that Nicole talks about is like, you know, hey, just like you said, it doesn't affect greatly our scope of work. It's a minor adjustment, minor change, but documentation is the biggest thing that I think is important here, that Liz actually has something to stand on because of her documentation. That's what the Brandons were all talking about too, and what Jordan has been talking about as well. So it's a big thing, especially with the people that we're working with. You know, it feels like paperwork is this big thing to keep up with. There's just a nuisance or it's annoying, but documentation protects you and your business more than anything else. And I don't know how many people can attest to that and how many times, you know, over you can say it's protected me from, you know, X, Y, Z. We could go on forever, but it's one thing to have documentation. It's another thing entirely to use it or enforce it. If you have a change order policy, but you're not using it, like Nicole said, it does nothing for you. If you have a callback policy, but you never enforce it, it does nothing for you. And so it has to kind of come together in that way.
Absolutely.
Great stuff, though.
Yes. Any other questions?
I think, Clayton, you may have been trying to comment on the last question, or I don't know if you had a question of your own earlier.
I can't remember what I was going to say now. Y'all went way past what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Love it, Clayton.
Well, if it comes back, you can pop back in.
Yes.
I can't even see Clayton, and he just seems like the kind of guy I could be friends with.
Oh, Jordan, he is. Clayton, he takes people on fishing trips. Like that's what he does outside of owning his company, and he's just the nicest guy you'll ever meet. We love him. He lives up in Kingston, Oklahoma, which is this tiny little town and right on the lake. It's awesome. Any other questions? Burning fires. Oh yeah, you see Clayton's view?
Showing the view.
Amazing. So jealous. Well, one question that I kind of wanted to bring up, and I was hoping that somebody else would bring it up because, man, I am hearing it all the time these days, is Nicole, it's so hard to sell right now. Like where our phones are ringing, our guys are going out, but I'm seeing my technicians' closing ratios going down. I'm seeing my sales guys' closing ratios go down. I'm getting a lot more people on the phone price shopping than ever. And we could totally play the game. We could spend the next 25 minutes of this meeting talking about the whys that this might be happening. You know, the economy, inflation, election year, whatever we want to throw at that reasoning. But is anybody here kind of dealing with that where you're like, man, selling right now is tough? Could I get kind of a show of hands, or just Jordan, I see you, Ryan, I know that that's something we've been working through, Arnold's Plumbing, you know, whether Clayton, whether you're a remodeler or a service guy, you know, it's across the board. I'm hearing this a lot. And so I would love if somebody kind of has a question on that or a comment or something that they've been doing differently to try to help that. I would love to hear from you guys.
I share one thing I've been doing differently, and it's because of you guys, is making sure that I'm going above and beyond by hand delivering estimates, or at minimum doing video calls. I've had one customer that just wanted me to talk him through it over the phone. I did that, and he was like, awesome. It was just what he wanted. So I just found a way to meet him there. And pretty much all the big projects that we've won because I'm doing that. So
yes,
Yes.
I love that so much. It's
yeah.
It's something that is so hard to I guess get buy-in on our side, I think, from the value of doing that delivery of estimates. We get into a mode, especially with bigger projects. we assume the status quo is you send the bid over email and you hear back, and that's how it goes. You just got to send out bids and bids and bids and bids, and then it's a numbers game until you hear back. But I love that you're doing that with the big jobs. If you really want it, that demonstrates that you really want it and that you're willing to give this extra touch of service. And it doesn't have to cost you a ton by going in person. You're doing the video calls if needed. And then even if you do that for small calls too, how much that does. I love that. I'm amped. That's awesome.
Yes, I see Brandon made a comment here where he says, yes, I've been doing a lot more phone consultations and charging a 75 per site consult to weed out tire kickers. If you are in a situation like Brandon where you've got a lot of leads coming in and you don't want to waste your time going out to people who are who have watched too much HGTV and think they can get a bathroom remodel for $5,000, you are in a position where you can charge a consult or estimating fee to go out and look at their job, and that's a great way to weed out those tire kickers. Clayton, I think I saw you on mute. Do you have a comment on?
Yeah, your vetting process that you have that you're talking about. We've closed more bigger jobs in the last few months, and pretty much anything that we've put a bid to, we've pretty much closed it. For in my mind, two reasons. One is that we go out and talk to the customer. I go out and talk to the customer daily, and I used to do like everybody else does and just send out the email bids. And anybody that I've sent an email bid to that I haven't spoke to and went over the contract over the phone, we don't close. If we talk to them personally and sit down with them or do a video call or whatever over the phone and go over it, we've closed every job. One of the things that I've seen with our business down here, and we're in a small town. I mean, we're in a town of 35,000, so we have small pockets to pick from. One thing that we've seen is you give people will come with you with their wants, and then you got to go back with their needs, and that's a big thing with us. They give you a list of their wants, you give them a price for their wants, and then you say, okay, so now you know what you want. This is what it's going to cost to do what you want, but do you need that? Is that in your price range?
Yes,
And
you can
90%
see
of the
both Bryce and I getting excited by this.
Yeah, this is offering multiple prices, not just based on selection of materials, but based on what needs are, here's the full vision, all the bells and whistles versus this. I love that.
Giving options, it becomes a pick one compared to a yes or a no. And it also makes the customer feel more empowered where they're like, okay, I'm not cornholed into one price. We can customize it. Maybe I can't get all of it, but I can, this is something I could do, I could afford. And so it's just a breath of fresh air to that customer when you're giving those choices.
The willingness to help is what's made us a difference between the people that we work against. Is we're willing to help them and step outside the box and do something that try to get them what they want, and maybe we got to change it, but we're not saying, hey, this is it, this is what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
And the stepping outside the box and willing to help them to get what they want or similar to what they want based in their price range is what's got us most of our jobs.
Yes. Clayton, I appreciate you sharing so much. I also appreciate Dale Eads' comment in here because, we have Brandon Carley, who owns a remodeling company, saying that he charges for his estimates now to weed out tire kickers. Dale owns a plumbing company, totally different type of business. It's service. You get called, you go out, you do the work that same day or that same week, get paid for it. Totally different model. And Dale, he now charges for estimates as well. And he says that it's weeded out tire kickers for the most part. It was a big decision. And sometimes we have folks get angry over it. That's okay. I want to empower you guys. Dale finishes it up with saying, but overall, it's been a very good decision. It's okay if somebody gets a little angry because you're not going to give a price over the phone, or if you have an estimating fee. It's weeding out those people that probably aren't going to move forward with you anyways. And so it's okay if somebody gets a little bit angry. It's okay if you see you're booking less appointments, but you're closing more estimates. That's a win in our book. So,
yeah.
One thing that I've noticed too with that price over the phone deal is that if you give them a price or a rough estimate without sitting down and doing the job, I don't care who they are as the customers, but they're all going to tell you the exact same thing, that they won't hold you to it. And at the end of the day, they're going to hold you to it.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And there's no
Very
way to
true.
accurately estimate over the phone. And now you're being
And if
held
you
to
give them
something.
a price range, they'll always hear only the lower number. They'll never hear the higher number.
Yeah. That's just human nature. We like to hear what we want to hear.
Selective hearing.
That's just who we are.
With my
Any
estimates too, I generally price them out a lot more conservatively and let the clients know that, hey, this is more of a conservative number. And in my estimates, I also throw in a 10% contingency, just so that, I'm covering my bases everywhere that I can from the start.
Yep,
Yes.
that's great. That's a concept we talk about here of the under promise, over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it that way allows you to, at the end of the day, come in and say, you know what, hey, we came in under. And if that
Yes.
still lets you be profitable and you have a win with the customer, that's awesome.
Yes. And that's also why with remodelers, or really with any of you guys, you never, if their budget is 30,000, you can maybe skim by, maybe get it under 30. We can't go with the very, very bottom number. It's always going to end up being more than that. And so setting those expectations at the beginning, giving yourself some wiggle room, don't start with like the very lowest number that you can go. That's not going to serve you or them in the long run. Any other questions here today?
Well, again, I think we've addressed that a time or two. It's like, how do you overcome well, yeah, you're just too expensive, right? And we talked about building value. If they're looking right out of the gate, if they just go straight to the bottom line and look at the price, I don't know that we did a good enough job building the value in the company that way to where the price is the price is the price at that point. I think that's an area that we're still struggling in with trying to build value in yourself and your company without bragging about yourself and your company or boring the crap out of the client. Really about them, and that's sort of where I'm struck, because I'm like, okay, we come in a little bit high. We come in at the high end and let them reduce to where I would think that we would normally want to be. And I don't know if that's a good tactic or not. I just started that in the last couple of weeks, and have closed a couple of jobs. A couple people basically couldn't shove me out of their house fast enough after I gave them the price. Other people were happy to get $6,000 off the price without me having to lose a dime or really remove a whole lot out of the contract. I still had to show them what was coming out, but it was high to start with, because I feel like people want to negotiate right now, and I don't know what time of year, if the spring is just, and we're all about negotiations, everyone thinks they're freaking Donald Trump or what, but they're trying to make the deal of the century. So I mean, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. And I go, honestly, I'd like to be able just to start out building. I do want to start charging for estimates, but start out by just basically removing the price tag from the job in the beginning, like on the initial visit. And so I'm curious if anybody else has any ways that they go out and they approach their clients, that have reached out, probably due to good cause, right? They've read your reviews. If anything, Redmond Gross helps you guys. I got about 40 reviews now, which helps a lot. So there's reasons they're calling me and want me to come out. The reason they don't sign with me is still baffling, right? You've got all this ammo behind you. Am I not doing a good job, or am I being on the side of arrogance when you try to build your company and yourself up? Or
I
I'm
think
just curious.
the main question here, Ryan, for the folks here is, how are you guys communicating value to your customers? How do you go about that? And I think this is applicable for a service company or a remodeler. Just if anybody wants to unmute and share, how are you communicating value?
Yeah. And while you think about that, one thing that it sounds like you're doing a little bit too, Ryan, we mentioned it a minute ago with the multiple options. It's this concept in sales that we've all heard, I'm sure, called anchoring, right? You anchor at a higher price, and that allows you some negotiation. You can say, here's the everything you want, all the bells and whistles. They see that big dollar, they get scared about that, and they say, well, I don't really want that. Well, you also have the thing that Clayton was talking about. Here's your list of needs. This is what we do for just getting the project done. So there's obviously there's infinite ways that you can anchor, but I think multiple options is, to me, the best way to anchor someone's expectations out here, and then be able to come in as the cheaper guy, but also the better guy. But I'll let others speak to that.
Yeah. How are you guys communicating value in a market where price is an emotional thing? How are we communicating the value we provide? Is anybody here using a one sheet? Can I get a show of hands, or a yes, or a hallelujah?
Oh no, we failed.
Oh gosh. This is sad, guys.
I'm not using a one sheet, but I can comment on that.
Yes, Clayton.
One thing that's helped us is we for every customer that we go meet, it's you know, we don't treat anybody like a customer, really. I mean, each job is tailored to them. And our goal is you go out and basically what we do is we communicate with the customers, and you listen to them, you understand them, you talk to them and see how they are. You fill them out basically.
Build rapport.
Yes, and then once you fill them out, you kind of, before you leave that first initial uh you know meeting, you're going to know what kind of person they are if you're any good at kind of judging character. And by judging the character, you can really sit down and figure out, okay, so is this guy going to be, the tire kicker, or is he really serious about it? And that's one of the ways that we kind of fill ours out. So when we sit down and do a bid, because there's sometimes that I send out just a plain bid, just to send it to somebody because I know how they are and I know they're not going to do the job, so I'm not going to waste my time.
Absolutely. Alyssa, if you could do me a favor, I want you to share your screen with that one sheet. I think it's Bobby Blues.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like some of you guys might not know what a one sheet is. And we don't have a ton of time here today. We have about 10 minutes left. But this is one of the best tools when it comes to communicating value. And it's such a simple thing to be able to empower your technicians to use, to have your sales guys going over it right before they're going over price. It's also a great tool to use as a business card because it's a lot more effective than a business card. But Alyssa, I'm going to let you kind of walk everybody here through this one sheet. If it's something that you do not have, or if it's something that you have not looked at in a long time, or maybe it's something that you used to implement and now you're not, now's the time. There's not a better time than now. And so, Alyssa, I'll let you kind of walk us through this here.
All right. Sounds good. So yeah, Nicole just said, the one sheet's a great way to convey your value. So what the one sheet is, it's a it's a two-sided document. On the front side, we have your logo and your contact information. We want, people to remember your name, how to get a hold of you. And then we want to put a no-brainer offer on there. Your no-brainer offer, it can be several different things. For Bobby, it's 100% satisfaction guarantee. This could be, on-time guarantee, first service calls $1, extended warranties that go beyond that typical 1-year mark. Really anything that tells the customer why they should use you or call you over someone else that's in your industry. So the next thing that's on here, and this is, really what we want to use to sell your value. We can't assume that people know the value that we provide. We have to take the time and build value with our customers, especially before going over pricing. So when deciding what to put on this comparison chart, we want to use tangible and deliverable benefits for the customer. So we don't want to say things like, we're family owned and operated, just like every other company. We want to say, benefits that are there for the customer. And so Bobby's benefits are a great example of what we're looking for on the one sheet. And I want to just show you guys how quickly you or your technician can utilize this comparison chart. So how we do this is just take a minute and say, hey, by the way, I know you have a lot of plumbers to choose from, but here's what makes us different. And, take a pen and touch on each point and take the time to sell your value. So how you would do this is saying, here at Bobby Blues Plumbing, we offer same-day emergency service. We know that plumbing problems aren't planned, so we want to make sure you're taken care of anytime a problem occurs. We won't leave you waiting like the other guy. Our employees are licensed, insured, and covered through workman's comp. With us, you won't have to worry about a general handyman working in your home, making mistakes, or accidents occurring that you're liable for. We always use high quality materials. We're certified users for industry leading brands like ProPress. We don't use the cheap stuff that saves you money at first, but will eventually cost you big.
One thing I want to point out there, guys, everybody says that they use good materials, they use high quality materials. We stuck the brand names on the one sheet. Make it real, make it tangible. That's something that people are going to recognize those names. If you're a certified vendor through one of these, that's a great thing to mention here. Again, we're focusing on tangible things. People don't care if you're family owned. They don't care about that stuff. What they care about is, what are you going to provide to me that I'm not going to get from someone else?
Yeah, and just touching on those last two, we know that in the service industry, many companies will leave you wondering and waiting all day for them to show up. At Bobby Blue, we make sure that we're always on time and provide consistent communication and updates. And then lastly, we always finish the job. Unlike other plumbers, when 5 o'clock hits, if the job isn't complete, we'll continue working until it is. That kind of gives you an idea of how to present the one sheet. And just a few extra things to take note of is, even, these benefits that you come up with, it might be the same as what others offer, but I guarantee they aren't taking the time to share those benefits with the customer. And then also, when you're presenting, you don't want to ignore the other guy's side. You don't have to read it word for word, but you want to touch on each point of what you do well and what the other guy does that isn't, giving the same quality that you give. So this is a great tool, if you're having a hard time, getting your other employees to sell as well.
For sure. And what I'll say too, when I talk about the other guys, it's not so much a smear campaign of another company. This is absolutely just beating out stereotypes. People have perceptions, negative experiences with contractors in the past. They assume you fit that same bill because you bear the title contractor. So that's what this is for too. And to Alyssa's point, I think it's really valuable in presenting this and having your team members do it too. If you feel like you're the best salesman in your company, you are, and you always will be. But you can equip your team with tools to be very close and say some of the same things that you do. It's a visible script, and you don't have to cover every point word for word. People don't really want that. Alyssa didn't do that either. She had the points there and kind of got the idea and said it in her own words. But you could even cover one or two of these, give it to the customer, go take your measurements, and go do whatever else, and let them see the rest for themselves. You've piqued their interest. You've whet their appetite to see more. Because you can tell them whatever until it's blue in the face, but having it printed out communicates so much differently than somebody that's a really good salesman. People will have their guard and their walls up. But if it's printed out, they realize, okay, this is just what the company's about. This is not what this guy's telling me to sell me.
And one thing that Arnold's Plumbing put in the chat that I want to emphasize: building value starts from the very moment somebody sees you online. It's from that very first phone call where they talk to you. It's from that very first interaction that they have with you, whether that's just looking at your Google business listing. And so what he says here is, they build value through their reputation, their reviews, the way they communicate. They don't really have an issue closing jobs because they're so intentional about their online presence, how they communicate on the phone, and how their technicians look. You have no idea, guys, how many times Dale's talked to me about a guy coming in with a wrinkly shirt, and we're not doing it anymore. And so Dale he has a laundry service that does their uniforms and brings it in. He's making sure his guys look sharp. He's making sure that their trucks are clean, their vans are clean. He has over 700 reviews. He's so intentional about the reputation. And your one sheet is going to be so much more powerful if you have all of those other things going for you as well. And with that one sheet, Dale also mentioned that they use it primarily with new customers. New customers, really big jobs, that are going to be a little bit more expensive. commercial clients who might be like wanting to consistently use you, those are the times where we really want to slow it down. Take the 2 minutes that it took Alyssa to go through that one sheet. You know, you can spare those 2 minutes. Take that time, go over that one sheet, empower your team. You're going to have to remind them at least 72 times to do the one sheet. You're going to have to hold them accountable to it. You're going to have to train them. But like Dale said, if you do a good job at that, you will see your closing ratios increase pretty significantly.
Yep. That relates to what we talked about earlier of having the document and employing, like using the document. It does nothing for you if it just exists. One thing I'd like to share, if you have more, Alyssa or Nicole, that you guys wanted to point out, go for it. But one thing I wanted to share with you guys as we kind of start wrapping up here is you're going to get an invitation for our Google Calendar invitation for these group calls going forward. When you get that invitation, scroll to the bottom of the email where it says RSVP yes to all future events. And if you hit that, then you'll have the calendar invites in your calendar as long as they need to be there. So just a heads up, you'll get that email, scroll to the bottom of it to hit the RSVP yes to all future events with that email.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, we really appreciate the feedback here today and coming with questions, coming with wins. That makes this call so much more valuable. Yeah, I don't think you guys understand how valuable the feedback is to other clients that you're given, and hearing the wins too. So just come to these calls prepared with questions, wins, all that good stuff. And when we're going to close out this group call the way we do every single one, which is going to be with a big 3, 2, 1 growth. So if I could get everybody to unmute. I know it's early for you people in California, but I need you to get revved up with me. 3, 2, 1. Growth. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Dale with Arnold's Plumbing typed it at the moment we said it in the chat.
That's a good man.